I spent the latter half of 2025 having a creative crisis. I follow a lot of artists that make these massive projects. They're a huge undertaking. They're so impressive. And I started feeling wildly insecure. I really wanted to join this club of just real artists making these huge projects. And I brainstormed all these ideas and I liked a lot of the ideas. But there was this one crucial difference between me and them that I was forgetting. These people that I was comparing myself to were all full-time artists. They don't squeeze their art in on the weekends and evenings after they're done with their chores, hoping that in their little bit of free time each day, they'll have enough energy to actually make something. But if there's a will, there's a way. If I really wanted to do a big, grandiose project, I would make it happen. I always make it happen. So then I realized I was just using my job as a complete excuse. So I had to confront the actual truth, which is I don't like making big projects that take forever. I respect and admire it when other people do it, but I tend to lose steam and I have way more fun in the planning process than the actual execution of anything. And I put so much more pressure on myself when I do these bigger projects because of the time sink. It's all around not something that I love to do, at least not right now. What do I actually love? Tiny little projects. Just a little thing. Those are always what brought me the most joy as a kid, and they're what I feel like bring me the most joy right now. But I've been neglecting that. I tend to not prioritize little projects because I, at some point, started looking down on them, which is ridiculous. Always thinking they're just not impressive enough. It's not a good use of my time, which what does that even mean? So I took some time and I decided I was going to sit down and make a little project. I think over a year ago, I was gifted a foundation paper piecing pattern. I don't know if this person watches my videos anymore, but if they do, you know who you are. Thank you. This pattern is from MH Designs and it's from 1995, making it over 31 years old. And the intention is that you'll make this sort of runner. It doesn't actually say what it is. What do we think this is? Is this just a thing to hang on your wall? Either way, this is not a little project. This is a medium project. And I'm completely new to foundation pattern piecing. So I decided instead of making this, I was just gonna make one of the flowers. This is a new craft I've never done before. I wanna take it slow. So I made the flower and it was so freaking cute. By the way, now have a small obsession with paper foundation pattern piecing. It's such a tongue twister every time. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Foundation paper pattern piecing. So I finished my little tulip and I was like, okay, it's a shame for me to just have this thing and not turn it into something. But then I remembered I was at this craft store a couple months ago and I saw this like pencil case that attaches to a notebook and I thought it was really cute. And looking at the tulip, I'm like, this would be the perfect size and shape to turn into one of those things. So I spent the rest of the evening making a thing. And it's adorable. Is it not? Oh my gosh. Look at this. Look at this. I'm hoping you kind of can't see the stains on it because I've been using this for weeks and I accidentally got an ink stain on there. And in trying to clean the ink stain, I may have made it slightly worse. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. And upon finishing this, I was struck down by the motivation fairy. You make it so hard to record. I know you're trying to distract me, like that's your whole thing right now. And it's working. So the next day, on my lunch break at work, I'm thinking, I want to make another tiny little thing when I get home. So I was thinking reusable makeup remover wipes. I've seen people have these before, and I wanted to use some of my scrap material, make it happen. To make them, I just used this old hand towel of mine and some scrap cotton fabric I had. I used this teacup topper as a stencil to cut with just because it felt like kind of the right size if I accounted for seam allowance. And I cut out circles from the hand towel, cut out circles from my scrap fabric, and from a different scrap fabric. The same number of circles for each one, so I think I had 6 of each cut out. The striped ones I folded in half, and that would function as a little pocket for me to put my fingers in, although I will say the pocket wasn't quite low enough for my fingers to actually fit in there without having to hold it down with my thumb. It's a whole thing. So I think I would go a little bit bigger with the pocket, maybe sew down the pocket in the future, but it works fine. I'm not going to make more. I ironed my circles in half The way I assembled these was having the hand towel portion be right side up, sticking the pocket in there. The right side was in both directions, so it didn't matter. And then I put my other complete circle right side down. I then sewed all the way around, making sure to leave a tiny little hole for me to actually turn this inside out later, and used my pinking shears and went all the way around. I have pinking shears, so I use them when I can. They are completely unnecessary though. You can just trim little bits. I then turned it inside out, which is my least favorite part of the sewing process right now. And it's mostly done. The only thing left for me to do was fill up that hole, which I did just by hand sewing it shut and repeating it 6 more times. My fingers were a little raw by the end of the night, despite the fact that I do use a leather thimble. See what I mean about the pocket being a little bit short, but it still kind of works? They turned out really cute and functional. Literally the next day, we're day 3 of making things. I decided I wanted to make a needle kit because my current needle storage solution was like an actual hazard. See this thing? Just like loose needles laying around. They would fall out all the time. This is not what you want, people. This is not what you want. For this project, I went a little bit extra and I cut out, using some scraps that I have, some letters that I would later iron on to my needle kit. I'll explain that more later. I started just by cutting out a rectangle. I think it was approximately 8 inches by 4 inches. But this is so size flexible, it really does not matter. And this is not a formal tutorial. I also cut out some little squares that were about 1 inch smaller in both directions than my overall needle kit size that I would later use for pockets. For everything, I used iron-on interfacing. It's a pretty thin layer, but it just gives it a tiny bit more stability. Plus, I have a ton of this interfacing and I kind of want to use it. See, little pockets, aren't they cute? I sewed around 3 sides of the pockets just straight up onto the back piece here. And after that, I put my other backing piece on here. I sewed right sides together, left a little gap to sew closed later to make sure I could turn it inside out. And at this point, I'm already like halfway done. This is when I went ahead and ironed on my little letters. I do this using a material I found, and it's this double-sided adhesive where it can turn basically any fabric into a patch. So it's like iron-on interfacing, but it's double-sided. I've tested this a few times, I've washed it, and it seems to hold up really well. Also, as a finishing touch, I sewed all the way around my rectangle twice. I love when you get that twin needle look without actually having to use a twin needle. The very last thing I did was cut out a piece of felt that's slightly smaller than my overall rectangle, and I sewed right down the middle to attach it to my back rectangle. And it gives it a nice place to fold along a spine. I also sewed all the way around the edge of the felt just to keep it from stretching out too much over time. I'm not sure how much it's gonna help, but it looks cute. The truly last thing I did was adding these little snaps on the corners just to make sure that I had a way to keep it closed when I didn't want needles flailing all about. And that's the needle kit. Looking pretty cute if I do say so myself, and the little pockets are perfect for storing my leather thimble and my extra thick darning needles that won't pierce through felt. The 4th day in a row, my motivation was kind of starting to wane a little bit. You know, it had been a long week, I had things to do, but I still wanted to make something. You know when you don't have energy, but you're like, I still want to make a thing. I just needed that thing to be pretty mindless and chill. So I scrolled through my Pinterest crafts board to see if there were any ideas on there, and I saw this pin where this person took fabric and double-sided tape and they made fabric washi tape. I was pretty excited about this one. The best part about this project is getting to dive into my teeny tiny scraps that I couldn't think to use for any other purpose. So I got this double-sided tape, and all I do literally is put it on the fabric, rub it in extra hard to make sure that it's really secure because I was a little paranoid about that. Cutting off the excess around the edges, and I use my pinking shears just to give it a cute little cut edge, but that is super unnecessary. This is not an advertisement for pinking shears. You do not need them if you do not have them. I have just bought things impulsively in the past, and if I do have a thing, I want to use it to make sure that I'm not completely wasting my time, energy, and money. I test these out on various woven materials, some that fray a lot, and I was happily surprised by how little they fray once they've actually been put on paper. 10 out of 10 project. In my Everything I Made in 2026 video, I showed this pencil holder because I did make this in December, and I received many a comment saying they would love me to do a tutorial for how to make this because it's so cute. Well, thank you. It is so cute. Now, I've been pretty firm on this channel for a while on the fact that I do not do tutorials. I don't like doing tutorials. They get so much scrutiny from people, and you get comments left and right that are just vicious of like, I don't understand this tutorial, and I don't want to deal with that because I can get my feelings hurt very easily, and I just don't like making tutorials. I prefer to do just a vague guide of kind of how I made something, leaving plenty of room for people to fill in the gaps themselves and kind of figure out how to make it. Because that's my preference. When I'm watching videos, I don't need a step-by-step tutorial in most cases on exactly what was done. I just want a general little like, here's kind of what I did. So I'm making another one of these so I can just explain. Otherwise, I know people would see this video and they'd be so sad that it was not included. And I think I kind of implied that I was going to show how to make it in my Everything I Made video, and I am not a liar. For this, I used my journal and a pen. This is where I got most of my measurements from, but a key piece of this is just experimenting. I snagged some fabric that I had in stash. With this project, there's so much flexibility around measurements, so play around, but the only thing that's really important is just making sure that the length is shorter than the length of the journal you plan on using this for. For adding the pocket, again, just making sure that it's slightly shorter than the length of the fabric you've already cut. To make this a little easier on myself, I cut out the fabric as just one piece to save myself from having to sew up a seam. And I also happened to just check to make sure that the pocket would be longer than the pens, but I've also made this before where the pocket is shorter than the pens. Both have worked out just fine. This is really easy to assemble. So I have my backing fabric face up, I have my pocket, and it doesn't matter what side that faces, and then I paste my other piece of backing fabric face down. But we need to talk about elastic. For the elastic, I just measured with my heart. Maybe that's an exaggeration. I measured the length of my journal and then I added the difference in size between my pocket measured so far and the journal itself, which in this case is 1 centimeter. And I added additional length for my seam allowance, which was about 1 to 2 centimeters. For a cute added feature, I just drew on these curved edges and cut it off with a pair of scissors. It's just gonna help make it look a little nicer when the elastic is a bit more taut on the journal, but again, it's a completely unnecessary step. I cannot stress how flexible all of these projects are. You do not need exact measurements and hand holding. I promise, if you want to make any of these, you absolutely got this. When assembling this, I just put the elastic on the inside here and clip that down or pin it down, clipped all the way around, and then I put my big purple clip as a reminder to leave a little bit open to sew later because I'm going to need to turn this inside out. And then I sewed all the way around, used my pinking shears on the curves, which again, you don't have to do. You can just snip little triangles with regular scissors if you want. I turned it inside out, which took way longer than I was expecting. Again, my least favorite part of the process. Poked out all the little corners of the curve, and it's basically done at this point. I just want to hand sew up this little hole on the side. See, it's done. Look at how easy that is. And I can stick my little pens in here. I will be honest though, they do have a tendency to fall out if you just leave them like this. So I would leave the little clip on the pen on the outside of the pocket just to keep it a little bit more attached. Kind of like guys in the 80s with their pocket protectors having their little pens hanging out their pocket. And you can see the little cap sticking out. You know what I'm talking about, right? Or if you don't want to do that, I used button snaps on my original version of this, which has successfully kept the pens pretty enclosed. I have had them fall out a couple times, but it hasn't been that big of an issue. You could also use Velcro instead, but just making sure that if you're using Velcro, you're going to want the pocket to be significantly taller than the pen or pencils that you're putting in here to make sure there's actually room for the Velcro to close. I also made a version of this where I installed a zipper, and that has worked out really awesome. I'm really proud of this version and wanted a little excuse to show it off here. I made this immediately after finishing the version that I showed you here. No, I will not be showing how I made the version with the zipper. I barely know how I made the version with the zipper. I'm really happy with all these little projects, and I'm going to keep doing little projects. They make me happy, and all of these were very functional items that just could be cute. It's been several weeks since I've made all of these, and I have used the makeup wipes pretty much every night to remove my mascara. Because I don't wear a full face of makeup, I just wear mascara, and oftentimes I'll take my showers in the middle of the day after I get home from work, but I might put on mascara to like go out and do something. So I don't need to wash my whole face, I just need to like get that off. And they have been so great for that. I put them through the wash many a time and they have held up really great. So happy with them. My needle kit has worked out really well. The only thing I would do differently is add another page so I could stick more needles in there because I have more needles than I thought I did. The fabric tape has been really cute to journal with, and I've been enjoying saving every little bit of scrap fabric that I have. I want to use up every ounce of my scrap fabric, and so the scraps that I have remaining are like tiny little pieces of string, anything smaller than a centimeter by a centimeter, and that just gets turned into stuffing. It's been so nice getting to use up my material like that. And my journal pencil holder I use all the time. I often bring multiple notebooks with me to places, so it's nice that I can stick my smaller notebooks in here and hold multiple together. I like to take this off and stick it on a book if I'm planning on annotating in that book. It's just like a nice thing to have. It's totally unnecessary, but now that I have it, I use it a lot. And I know this video is coming out after my very specific gift ideas video, mostly because it released today. But this was a huge inspiration for that video and me just wanting to take on all these tiny little projects. So we'll see. I can see myself getting really into long-term, bigger, grander projects in the future. That's not quite where I'm at right now. And I like the balance because right now I am working on a cardigan that I have been working on for a month and a half, not working on any other knit or crochet projects, just focusing on this cardigan. And it's been really nice to balance doing something more long-term with these little projects. And I don't get as frustrated being like, this is dragging on so much. I'm enjoying the slowness of it because I'm getting to enjoy these quicker crafts, and I am learning a lot through doing these little crafts about various techniques I've been wanting to try, and I just love it. Please let me know if you have any little craft ideas. I might stick them in a future video, so I might plagiarize your idea with your consent. If you put something down in the comment section, I might use that someday. Thank you for letting me fangirl over cute little baby tiny projects. I hope you are able to get a little bit of fresh air today. I don't want to get into the details of it, but read a story that just made me really appreciate the fact that I can go outside pretty much whenever I want and breathe fresh air. That is amazing. It is a gift. So I'm going to go stand outside and breathe in some fresh air. Before I forget, I would love to give a big thank you to people that have been supporting me over on Patreon. It has been overwhelmingly awesome how sweet, innovative, and collaborative people are being over there, and I'm really proud of the community that's growing. It feels a lot more connected, and I'm glad to have a space where I can more securely and more personally chat with a lot of folks. It's been fantastic.
Darte mis noches.